This is Shelley Kraft coming to you live on SNN.Live. We're coming to you from the Dawson James Securities Small Cap Growth Conference 2019 here in Jupiter, Florida. I have with me Scott Powell from VolitionRx. It's a publicly traded company on NASDAQ, and the symbol is VNRX. Scott, welcome back to SNN.Live.
Thanks, Shelley. It's great to be back, and appreciate you taking the time to interview me here at the Dawson James Conference in Florida.
It's always good to have you, and let's get started with a brief overview of the company, and then we'll go from there.
Sounds good. So, as you might recall, we're a diagnostics company. We are focused on developing blood tests, primarily to screen for different cancer types, with our primary focus on colorectal, lung, and recently we've announced some veterinary applications as well.
Now, we haven't had you on for a while, so we have some catching up to do. So let's start with an update since the last time you were on.
Sounds good, Shelley, thanks. So I think the most current news that we should discuss is the veterinary application. It's something we didn't even envision Volition had technological applications for a couple of years ago, the last time that I was on. But recently we've announced some very interesting and significant developments with regard to our veterinary application. It's the same technology that we're using to develop blood tests to screen for cancer in humans, but we recently announced a collaboration with Texas A&M University in College Station, Texas, to jointly develop a blood test to screen for cancer in animals, and specifically in dogs first. So we've had a number of announcements over the past couple of weeks. We announced the formation of our subsidiary, Volition Veterinary Diagnostics, LLC. We've announced that Texas A&M has taken a 12.5% equity stake in our veterinary diagnostics subsidiary. And this morning we announced a $500,000 loan from Sofinex in Europe to develop our blood tests for animals with Texas A&M University. So a lot of major developments as it relates to our veterinary application recently.
What would you say is Volition's overall competitive advantage in the marketplace?
Several things. First, our modality is blood. So there are some competitors of ours that are also working to develop screens for different cancer types. Many of them are not working in blood. Blood is the most convenient modality, right? Most of us give blood on a regular basis, have given blood probably dozens of times over the course of our lives for blood drives, our annual physicals, and things like that. So some of our competitors are not working in blood, so it's less convenient to test a person when it's not blood. Blood is a very easy, blood samples are very easy to take. People generally comply. Secondly, compared to our competitors, we're getting very good early stage detection. So short of a cure for various cancer types, the next best way to address cancer is to find it early. Because if you can find it early, the chances of survival are much, much higher, obviously, than if you find cancer late stage. So that's the second competitive advantage, is we're getting really good early stage detection. And third, our blood test requires just a small amount of blood, so it can be part of routine care. It can just be another tick of the box, another blood test when you're going in for your annual physical and you're having all your other battery of blood tests run. So those are some of our competitive advantages compared to the other companies out there.
And how do you run the gamut on reimbursement?
Well, it depends on the continent. So we are a global company. We have clinical studies in Asia, Europe, and the US, so it really depends on the region. With the US, we hopefully will get included in reimbursement guidelines, and we'll work through the various insurance companies and reimbursement and CPT codes and things like that. In Europe, it depends on the cancer type. So for colorectal cancer, it's the governments of Europe that primarily run screening programs, so there's no reimbursement per se. It would be the governments of Europe purchasing directly from us, so we wouldn't have to go through a reimbursement process there. And in Asia, again, it depends on the country, but what we're really excited about is that we have a lot of clinical data coming in 2020 in the first half, and we'll hopefully move into commercial stage in various continents in the second half of 2020 and into 2021. So a really exciting time for Volition as we anticipate the release of a large amount of clinical data in colorectal cancer and lung cancer for humans, and in canine health for a blood test for cancer in dogs, and then start to move those products into commercial stage.
So, with this new advent of the veterinary side of the company, let's talk about the addressable target markets for both human and animals.
The markets are massive. So if we look at colorectal cancer in humans, there are over 100 million Americans of screening age for colorectal cancer. The age for screening is now 45 to 75. So there's over 100 million Americans of screening age for just that one particular cancer type. In Europe, there are 150 million Europeans of screening age just for colorectal cancer. So the numbers are pretty staggering when you look at various cancer types in different continents. Now, colorectal cancer is one of the cancers that most governments globally screen for, and most screen for asymptomatically. So for some cancer types, you only get screened if you're considered high risk. So you have certain genes that predispose you to a particular cancer type, family history, lifestyle factors, other risk factors, or you're symptomatic. For colorectal cancer, you get screened asymptomatically. The trigger is age. In the U.S., it's now 45. You're supposed to go on for your first colonoscopy. In Europe, the ages are 50, 55 roughly. So the opportunities are huge. In the veterinary application, one-fourth of all dogs will be diagnosed with cancer in their lives. So it's a very high prevalence rate for cancer in dogs. And there are 2.5 times more dogs diagnosed with cancer annually in the U.S. than humans. And that's not because of the higher prevalence, it's just because of the shorter lifespan. Dogs live much shorter lives than humans, of course, and so there are just more dogs diagnosed with cancer annually. And we think we can charge about the same for a blood test for dogs as we can for blood tests for humans. We're looking at in the hundreds of dollars, depending on the cancer type and the product. And our cost of goods, as we've stated publicly, is less than $10 for most of our products. So we have a very, very healthy gross margin. So I think we can do very well in terms of revenue and profitability, do well for our shareholders. But I think we can also make a huge impact for humanity and for animals in terms of getting more people screened, because more people will do a blood test than they would do other types of tests for various cancer types, catch these cancers early because we're getting really good early stage results, and really make a big difference in terms of catching cancer early and improving outcomes and survivability for people and animals alike.
What's your background?
My background is about 20 years on Wall Street, so a combination of finance, statistics, economics. Started off as an equity trader in the late 90s, migrated over to investment banking, and after the financial crisis of '08, moved over to investor relations, and now I serve as the head of investor relations for VolitionRx and the U.S. Chief Financial Officer.
So, Scott, what about other of your team on the science side, for instance?
We have a phenomenal team, both internally and on our scientific advisory board. So we have, as our chief scientist and one of the scientific founders of Volition is Dr. Jake McAuliffe. Dr. McAuliffe is a renowned scientist. He has written most of the patents that VolitionRx has granted. We have now 7 U.S. patents granted, 7 European patents granted, and I think the number is now over 120 or 125 patents pending globally. So Dr. McAuliffe is a phenomenal scientist and really visionary when it comes to helping to steer the technology and the science into products that we think can make a big difference for humanity. So Dr. McAuliffe is incredibly talented. Dr. Gaetan Michel is the CEO of our Belgian subsidiary. Again, does a phenomenal job running our laboratory in Belgium, where it's the primary location for our office and lab, and has done a wonderful job for many years helping to move these clinical studies forward, hire a great team of scientists around him. Our scientific advisory board is full of very talented individuals. Dr. George Royce-Filo, one of the top oncologists in the world from Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York City. Dr. Alan Coleman is on our board. Dr. Coleman was one of the lead scientists that cloned Dolly the sheep back in the 90s at the University of Edinburgh, the first sheep clone in the world. So really have a wonderful scientific team surrounding us and guiding us, and I think we have a really great management team and finance team kind of pushing things forward, keeping the eye on the ball in terms of making sure we're well capitalized to move these clinical studies forward, that we're well capitalized to move products into commercial stage, and trying to generate a good return for investors and make a big difference for humanity at the same time.
So now you're a public company, so only tell me what you can, based on press releases, et cetera. What are some growth drivers going forward?
Well, as I say to investors, we have a lot of opportunities in front of us. So the nucleosomics technology is really a platform technology. It's the core of Volition, and I kind of think of that as an alphabet, and from that we create words or products. And so from the same base technology, we're looking at developing blood tests for lung cancer screening, colorectal cancer screening. We've previously had good results in prostate cancer and in pancreatic cancer. We are looking at our first non-cancer indication, endometriosis. We have completed a study with Oxford University in the UK looking at endometriosis, a big issue for women's health. And we've announced the veterinary application and the collaboration with Texas A&M University. Our CEO, Cameron Reynolds, signed an agreement last week in Texas with Texas A&M University. So really a lot of opportunities in a variety of cancer types, both in human and animal health. And I think hopefully the future is very bright. We have a lot of clinical data coming over the next several quarters, and we're hopeful to move these products into commercial stage in the coming years.
Scott, let's get your website out there for our investor audience, if you would.
Sure, thanks, Shelley. Our website is volition.com, VOLITION.com, and our ticker is VNRX.
Ladies and gentlemen, Scott Powell, VolitionRx, publicly traded company on NASDAQ, VNRX. I'm Shelley Kraft. This is SNN.Live. We're coming to you live from the Dawson James Securities Small Cap Growth Conference 2019 here in Jupiter, Florida. Always a pleasure, Scott. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
You got it.